Well, hello everyone, and welcome to Hogarth's Global Astrology. Know your planets, know yourself. I've got my timer behind me just to make sure that I stay on time with this presentation. Let me have a quick slurp of coffee. And today, as many of you will know already, those of you that check the community post that I put up from time to time, today I want to talk about my my dragon dream for the people of China, yeah, and also as well we're going to be talking about Xi Jinping, and I've got his chart as well. And I'm also as well going to kind of close up and finish off as well to talk about the British people as well, the nation of the UK post-Brexit. Yeah, let's put it that way, because I've been tuning in to lots of different things. So I've got a client. Very well. At the moment, it is 16:20 or 4:20 in the afternoon, 30th of November 2022. I've got a client at 5. It means I've only got 40 minutes or just under 40 minutes. So I'm going to try and keep it brisk so that, of course, that I stay on time for my client, and you'll be getting this in the evening. I'll do a little bit of editing and stuff like that. Before I proceed, I also want to remind people as well that I have my special offer now until the 7th of December, yeah? And it is what I've shown before, which is this Crimbo 20, yeah? All lowercase, just put that in, if you decide to go for a consultation, it's 20% off all of my consultations. Many of you have gone for it already. So feel free as well just to take advantage of the discount. I like to kind of do something around this time of year, around that Thanksgiving / Christmas holiday periods. Many of you like to have consultations in the new year, so now's a great time to get those in, whatever takes your fancy. So again, Crimbo 20, all lowercase, put that in at the checkout. My of course, my website is thearchetypalblueprint.com. There you can see everything that I do. So if you fancy a consultation, maybe it's about career or the year ahead, 2023, going into 2024, romance, finances, archetypes, whatever's on your mind, have a look there and get stuck in and take advantage of this offer before it ends on the 7th of December. Right, so that is that. Oh, and of course as well, please don't forget to like and subscribe, press the bell notification and all that jazz, all of that stuff. Okay, so we got a little bit of business and housekeeping out the way. Now let's get back into this dream. Oh my goodness. Now in my notes, I had this dream. Let me just rummage through it. Here we are. I had this dream at 4:55 a.m. As you know, these things tend to come in the early small hours for me, on the 28th of November 2022. So look, this was a couple of days ago now. Today's the 30th. And so I have a confession to make. Which is now, as you know, like when I had the dream about Trump. Yeah, do you remember the Mar-a-Lago going under the waters, etc., and stuff like that? And I said how this was reminiscent of his downfall. We then had that huge, we then had, and then I dreamt about the two women. Remember, one brunette, one blonde. Turns out, it was, I think their names have gone out of my head. Sarah Matthews was the blonde one, and Hutchinson was the brunette, and they both gave evidence on the Jan 6th committee. And then, of course, there was the FBI search as well of Duck Larange's property. We found all of those documents, and he's been in hot water. And then there was, remember that Cat 4 hurricane that hit Florida? Yeah, because remember I saw Mar-a-Lago, and it was kind of like metaphorical, going under the waters, quite literally. It was like a cross between a bomb going off and everything like that. And then we've seen everything that's happened since. And then there was another, literally like a tropical storm, as it were, which literally blew over Mar-a-Lago just before uh, Duck Laranges, or the Orange Albatross, as I might refer to it now for the GOP, just before Tiffany had her wedding. Now, obviously, the wedding passed without a hitch. Mar-a-Lago was fine. It has been hurricane-proofed anyway from its inception and its building, but nonetheless, these things are very symbolic, and I think that was just representing, the last vestiges of any kind of credibility that Duck Laranges had. And as we see, it's gone into other things. So this dream though that I had about China has a similar feel. Yeah, has a similar feel. That's why I mentioned the Duck Larange, because we've seen what has transpired since. And that was me in a way kind of sharing with you a lot of these psychic hits that I get. I don't really talk about that much, We know that, look, there's lots of psychics. Let's just put it that way. However, I do have these dreams from time to time that are so significant and profound, I just have to talk about them. And this one about the Dragon of China is another one. First of all, it was extraordinarily unusual, and I wasn't expecting it. Secondly, I have a shamanic side to me. Let's put it that way, a shamanic side to me. My clients know this, yeah? For anyone who's had a consultation with me, this is not news to them, yeah? And this is often why a lot of people also as well come back. I have repeat consultations because of the effects, yeah? Because of the effects of what I'm able to share and reveal for people and their charts. And I read charts four-dimensionally, effectively. It's not just, I don't just read the person's chart, I can see their family, friends, career, everything. I mean, I suppose many astrologers do this, but I do it in a particular way. And so I'm a bit of a dragon rider, yeah? Oh my God, I can't believe I'm saying this, but it's true. In the metaphysical realm, yeah? Now, first of all, we need to talk a little bit about dragons. None of us have necessarily seen a dragon in person, unless we're looking at like an iguana or a Komodo dragon, or something like that. Yeah, that's how they can sort of, or even an alligator, crocodile, something ancient like that can represent our notion of dragon. However, isn't it interesting that the concept of dragon is ubiquitous across so many cultures, societies, etc. Dragons seem to be as old as humanity itself, yeah? Because there are a symbolic representation of something. What a lot of people don't know is that dragons are the primordial embodiment of yin energy, or the divine feminine, believe it or not. Now, people obviously they're masculine dragons, feminine dragons, and what have you. A lot of people think that dragons are masculine, because they breathe fire and stuff like that. But actually, they actually represent the unbridled, purest, and one of the highest manifestations of the divine feminine. That's why there are so many stories of princes or male patriarchy going around doing what? Slaying dragons. It is about a patriarchal idea of the domination of nature and the divine feminine, and what that represents, which can also extend, of course, to women as well. So I just wanted to talk about that, because this is something that is often very overlooked. And in the West, as Eastern philosophy becomes more integrated, there are some issues, because there's a lot of cherry picking. Yeah, there's a lot of cherry picking that goes on. And especially as well, like, I'm responsible for absolutely everything that happens to me. I signed up for absolutely everything that happened and stuff like that. There's some truth in that, but it's also untrue. And what do I mean by that? When we come here to Earth School, it's a bit like planning a trip to Rome. We all know the main sites, yeah? We've all heard of the Colosseum and the Vatican and the Trevi Fountain, yeah? And then we come down and there is the reality of Rome. There is the noise, the traffic, all of the tourists, you know, and sometimes it's not necessarily the tidiest place. And there can be lots of things that happen in Rome that we were not expecting, yeah? So why am I mentioning that? It's just that we need to we're evolving. Everyone is evolving, especially us in the West as well, and we're starting to integrate these newer ideas along with some of the older ones. But what I want to talk about is this cherry picking. So bringing it back to dragons, there is this whole idea that, you know, dragons are just aggressive and they just fly in the sky and you know, try to eat princesses and burn down villages. Yeah. But there's so much more to dragons than that. Dragons also are immensely creative. They again represent that that primordial divine feminine, which is an immensely creative force, very subconscious, but also very, very creative. Dragons also represent spiritual liberation and freedom, wisdom and knowledge. Dragons are immensely important. They are magical. We know them to be magical beings. Yeah, they're magical beings. Another slurp of coffee. They're immensely powerful. They have tremendous, because they can channel the power of the subconscious and so many different things. Now, dragons, like I said, are synonymous with many, many cultures, but the dragon in China in particular takes on even more significance because it truly is a sacred symbol. Of course, you have the Chinese astrology as well, and there is Year of the Dragon. And I love dragon. I've always loved dragons. People born in the Year of the Dragon, I get on so well with. Um, and in China, and Asia in general, but in China in particular, the dragon really takes on huge mythical proportions. You'll see dragons everywhere. It's very associated with good fortune and luck and all of these different things. But there's all sorts of different types of dragons, of nature dragons, of the sky, water. You know, you've got river dragons, earth dragons, fire dragons. Every element is pretty much covered. So when I was having this dream, I was riding my own dragon. I do have my own. And it's this one in particular, it's a white dragon, and she's called Aurora. Yeah. And so I was going, and I've ride many different dragons, even the nodes of the moon, Rahu, Ketu, or Swabanu, when they're together. And there's been so many different things, and I'll probably have to make a separate video about my dragon adventures and stuff like that. But again, this is the first time I'm sharing this, because this really is, even for you guys, might seem a bit woo-woo. Yeah, but mind you, the comments have been very really supportive. So anyway, so I was dreaming and I was riding Aurora, and I heard the call. And so I was flying along, and I just answered it. I just answered it, and I knew it was another dragon. And this was very interesting, because I wasn't expecting this at all. And then I flew in the direction. I realized, oh right, okay, I think I'm over China here. And I was going to like a cave system, and that's when I heard also as well the name Xi Jinping. Yeah, Xi Jinping. That was very clear in my mind. Anyway, Aurora and I, we found this cave system, went in, and there was the Dragon of China. And what do I mean by that? There are many different dragons and stuff like that in China, in the land of China, in all of the elemental things. But this one was the dragon of the Chinese people themselves. It was their essence, their most fundamental essence of them as a people here on Earth School in that land and region where they are. And anyway, so I went in, and this dragon, it was kind of dark grayish between black, gray, and green. A kind of you know what, some of those iridescent colors, and you turn it, and it has those different colors within them. That was it. Huge. This dragon was massive, but it was chained. It was chained up. And this is a very, very sad thing to see, an extremely rare thing to see as well, because dragons are free. Yeah. And it was literally, it was crying out in anguish. So I was just like, oh my God. So, I just got off the back of Aurora, took up my wand, my metaphysical one. This is my physical one, but my metaphysical one, which is it's like it's made of light. And I basically touched it to the shackles, and the shackles fell off. Yeah. So that's what I did. Got back on Aurora, and we left. Yeah. That's what that dream was about. What happens from now, and we'll have to see how that pans out. Obviously, we'll just have to see. But that was it was a metaphysical, and it was an energetic experience, and I just did my part. Because there are times, and look, and I'm not going around kind of freeing this, freeing that, or whatever. This kind of thing only happens when I'm called. I've been called before for, some people's ancestors will call me, and I have to do some energy work there, or work specifically with that person, or eagles, for example, which is one of my totem animals, spirit animal as well, have been used to get in touch with me, particularly as well people who've got Native American Indian blood, or they're connected to those lands and they want to get in touch. That's how I've often been contacted. But this has been the first time that it's sort of been like dragon to dragon, effectively, and representing a nation. So that's very interesting for me. And I'm thinking it could be as well because Saturn is about to go through my 8th house soon, in the middle of January 17th, 2023. And the 8th house deals with, of course, I call it sex, death, and rock and roll, but it deals with the occult, all of that invisible stuff. And Saturn is very, very close, getting very, very close to that point. So I think that's part of it as well. But really, this dragon, it was showing the repression that the Chinese people have been under. Now, we knew before, pre-COVID and stuff like that, there was a lot of restrictions, a lot of controls, a lot of stuff that you couldn't say. But as long as you avoided those things, from what I understand anyway, and let me know in the comments, you could pretty much live, normal life. Everyone knew that they were monitored. But there's a difference between knowing that you're monitored and effectively being under house arrest. And I want to use the term house arrest because really this is kind of what it is. And as we'll know, the Chinese government has a zero COVID policy. Yeah, zero COVID policy. And this policy has been obviously criticized, for quite a while, because it's impossible to have a zero COVID policy with something that is so infectious, yeah, and it has just traveled all around the world. As we know, China has its own COVID vaccine. I think over 90% of the population are vaccinated, but they say it's not as effective as the ones in the West. But they refuse to use the ones in the West. That, for me, in many ways, also says a lot. And at some point, we're going to have a conversation about this where I will share certain things. I don't think that time is right yet, so let's park that for now. But there is a very, very specific reason why China has not adopted certain things, and I will leave it there. I will leave it there because we're not quite ready yet in the collective for that conversation. More 2023, 2024, I think, many of us are going to be on the same page. Let's put it that way. And again, for entertainment purposes only. But there is a specific reason why they have refused. You will never know that reason in the news, but I know why. Anyway, but the point is they have their own version. But overall, because of the zero COVID policy, which is proving to be completely unrealistic, as people said, there's quite low natural immunity to, of course, the virus. So what has happened is effectively, because remember as well, China was the first place to, one of the first places to lock down. They've been locked down for pretty much the best part of 3 years now. And this has been crushing the spirit of the people of China, as you can imagine. We know that, it's terrible. Many people have been lost to COVID, as we know. However, there's also many more people being lost as the consequence of lockdowns and stuff like that. Either mental health issues, loss of livelihood, other health issues not being addressed and dealt with. And these they really are just facts. There's so much evidence out there now for anyone that is, and which is non-conspiracy theory, by the way. Anyone that wants to look into this can find that knowledge if they want. If they don't want to know it, then that's fine, then that's their choice. But the evidence is mounting, especially situations with flu as well for young people here in the UK as well. Because why? When I say young people, we're talking like toddlers in ICU and all of this kind of stuff with flu, because their immune systems have not been developed, have not been exposed to other children, germs, etc. Because we've had, 2 and a bit years of lockdown ourselves. So there've been these natural processes have been interrupted. Anyway, going back to the people of China, you will notice that I've recently, when I've been talking about China, that I've been pulling the hermit card for them. And I said they're, because of the isolation and the lockdowns, they're being forced to go within, and there is a spiritual transformation that is happening within the Chinese people, symbolized very much about that dragon that was in chains. Yeah, I just did my little bit, but that dragon was in chains, hugely significant as the collective oversoul of the people of China. So they've been feeling deeply repressed, and of course this is affecting their psyche. Now, coming to the words of that I heard, which was Qi Qing. Yeah. Now, in my notes, I wrote it Qi and then Ching, because that was just how I heard it phonetically. But I thought, let me Google this to make sure that this is a real thing. And it is. And then what I found was the Duke. Yeah, this is the Wikipedia entry. Some of you have already looked at the Wikipedia itself. This is the only reference that's pretty much out there. But here you are, Duke Qing of Qi. Yeah. In my mind, it said Qing Qi, but it's the same thing. So this guy, let me just read you, because I knew that this story, when I looked it up and when I heard Qing Qi, which of course it must have been coming from the dragon. I don't see how else the words could have come into my head, because I've got no idea. Very little. I mean, I like my history and stuff, but I don't know that much about ancient China, although I am familiar with the Qing dynasty. Yeah, in terms I've heard it before. Anyway, so I'm going to read you off here. It won't take too long, but it's important to put into context. So Duke Qing of Qi was and let's see, he was the Duke from 598 to 582 BC. So remember, the further back in time you go, the number goes up. The closer we get to, time of Christ and all that stuff, which was over 2,000 years ago, the number goes down. But nonetheless, I mean, this is ancient China. I mean, I've never been called in this way for something so ancient for a nation. So his reign was 598 to 582 BC and was the ruler of the state of Qi, yeah, Qi, a major power during the spring and autumn period of ancient China. His personal name was Liu Wu Yi, was his ancestral and his ancestral name was Yang. Yeah. So let's just see here what I've got here. So I've covered that. His successor was Duke Qing of Qi. That was his son. Died 582. Spouse was Zheng Mengzi or Zheng Menzi, and his son was Ling. Yeah, as I've said already. And his father was Duke Hui of Qi, and his mother was Zhao Tong Shu Zi. Yeah. So you can imagine, I've just been basically told this as a reference point. I had no clue. So this shows how ancient and old all of this thing was. So here, what I'm gonna just read out here, and this is where I feel it is significant for Xi Jinping, who is of course currently China's president. Yeah, the kind of effectively the supreme ruler. Yeah. So I knew if the dragon was giving me this story, there was something very significant about the story of Duke Qing. Anyways, so I'll just read here. Accession to the throne. Duke Qing was the son of Duke Hui of Qi and grandson of Duke Huan, the greatest leader of the state of Qi. He succeeded his father, who died in 599 BC after a 10-year reign. Duke Hui had favored the official Sui Zhu. After Duke Hui's death, the powerful Gao and Guo clans of Qi expelled Q, who fled to the state of Wei. So there was lots of like usurpings and this, that, and the other, and all of that kind of stuff. Q would later return to Qi and cause great turmoil in the state. But this is the important bit. Of course, you can imagine, I've got no idea about this. The dragon just dropped the words into my head, which was, Qi Qing, yeah? So there was the Battle of An. So in 589 BC, Qi, the state, attacked the states of Lu and Wei and annexed the Lu city of Long. Lu and Wei were allies of the state of Jin, a major power of the spring and autumn period. So you see, there was a lot of conflict going on in China at this time. In response, Duke Qing of Jin dispatched the Jin army led by General Shi Ji, Luan Shu, and Hanju to help his allies. So what is the Qi and Jin areas of China went into battle. So the forces fought at An, which is near present-day Jinan. Yeah, so the Jin has been added to the front. And Qi was decisively defeated. Duke Qing narrowly escaped capture by exchanging clothes and position with officer Pang Choufu, who was taken prisoner by Jin and General Hanju, mistaking him as the Duke Qing. After the battle, Duke Qin was forced to plead for peace and cede territory to the state of Lu. Duke Qing was greatly humbled by the defeat at the Battle of An. After the battle, he reduced taxes, gave alms to orphans and the infirm, and was said to forego alcohol and meat until his death 7 years later. So he reigned for 16 years. Turns out he reigned for 16 years in the end. So putting this all together, in light of the recent protests, which of course have been cracked down, have you noticed people have been standing with A4 blank sheets of paper, yeah, to protest? Very, very, very powerful. The state, obviously Xi Jinping has ordered that the police come out en masse and basically stop everyone. Now, even though the protests, he may have bring a lot of them to an end, these ones that happened were unprecedented. Well, the last time it happened was in the 80s, yeah. Tiananmen Square, famously the guy standing in front of the tank, yeah, who got run over. We all know that one. Well, if maybe younger audiences may not know, but it's iconic. So if the dragon has dropped those words into my head in the dream, in this dream metaphysical state, then it's because remember, dragons are what? They are ancient. They live for thousands of years. As we know, a dragon can only be slain if you can, pierce the armor, if we think of the Hobbit kind of stuff. So dragons are ancient beings that live for very, very long times. And of course, dragons also as well are famous for their memory. They're also great historians because they're these great repositories of knowledge because they've lived so long. They can sense what's going on when they fly. They can commune with each other and because they're so connected to the earth as well. They absorb everything. So of course, the dragon, knowing its history, was able to drop that into my head. You can imagine, I don't have a clue about this. And I'm like, let me just Google this to see if it's real. And it comes out with this ancient story from China's past. So what this suggests is that there could be a time where maybe Xi Jinping, again for entertainment purposes only, could be humbled in some kind of way. And so I wanted to look at his chart. Now, what's happened recently with Xi Jinping? We need to understand something unprecedented has happened recently. Most times the supreme leader of the CCP lasts for 10 years. After 10 years, they're supposed to give it up. So the previous one was Yang Zemin. I think I've got that. Let's say Zhang Zemin. Forgive me if I've got that wrong. And he was a leader for 9 years and 353 days. Yeah, there's only 365 days in a year. So, that was his 10 years. And then there was Hu Jintao, who came next, who was before Xi Jinping, and his was 10 years. And I think that was the guy that was taken out of the auditorium. Forgive me if I'm wrong. I need to double check it because here I'm just in this real-time moment here and I can't check that. But I think he was the previous leader. He was the one that held on to Xi Jinping's shoulder. And you remember he was taken out and they said he wasn't feeling well. I think that was him. But don't quote me on that. Please check me to make sure that I'm right because I can't check right now. So what's happened is Xi Jinping recently, like with those eclipses, has now effectively got an indefinite term. And looking at Xi Jinping's chart, here it is here, there is an important transit that's happening, but let's cover the basics. So I'm only going to go over this quickly. For those of you that have my membership and stuff, I'm going to scan these charts and this information so that you've got it for your own reference. And so there's no official birth time, but he was born on the 15th of June, 1953. So again, with people in politics, you use midday. And again, it works beautifully. And so that makes him a Leo ascendant, Leo ascendant. Leo is all about what? Leadership, kings, queens, politics, all of that kind of stuff, So kind of appropriate, isn't it? It's the sign of the king. And if we look here, in his Shadbala score, the sun, and the Shadbala is basically looks at the planets through the divisional charts in Vedic astrology. Too long to explain, unique to Vedic astrology, incredible way of looking at the strength of planets. And the sun in his chart it gets the score of 614, and its other score is 1.57. That's huge. And I've written here, Xi sees himself as a dragon emperor, just as I thought. But he's not. There are such things as dragon emperors, and China, as you can imagine, and other nations as well, have had many, well, not that many because it's quite rare, but he sees himself in that form. But I know he's not. And when I talk with my clients who are from East Asia, or China, Hong Kong, or other areas that are closely connected with China, we talk about this, and we've spoken about this, and they agree with me, and they understand exactly what it is that I'm talking about. In the West, that's a bit of an unusual concept, but it's very well understood in places like China and the Far East. And he is not that, because remember as well, dragons are immensely creative, and most of the time, look, we know leadership can go to people's heads. But if you're a dragon emperor, you're going to have this immense creativity as well, and it can often lead to cultural blossomings of all kind, great arts, theatre, etc., and all that stuff. Because you can't just be tyrannical. There needs to be the creative side as well. Whereas with Xi, it's all about, entertainment purposes only, but it's very obvious. And that's why the dragon was in chains, because he literally just almost starving the spirit of the Chinese people. And this is one of the first times they've actually called him out by name, saying that he should resign and step down and stuff like that. So this is extraordinary stuff. Anyway, quick slurp. Let me just read here. I'll just read this bit here, and then that will wrap things up, and then I'm going to talk a little bit about the UK, and hopefully I've still got time. So from March 13th, 2023 to May 19th, so from March 13th to May 19th, 2023, let's just put 2023 in there. Sidereal Mars, which is currently sitting in Taurus, sidereal Taurus, will go over Xi Jinping's very important planets. It's going to go over the sun. The sun is the identity, the ego, how we show up in the world, the kingdom, literally the kingdom. The sun deals with what? Leadership. It's also going to go over his Mars. So transiting Mars is going to go over natal Mars. It's going to go over Mercury, which is the planet of communication, and it's going to go over Uranus, sudden shocks and surprises, rebellion. It's also going to go over Ceres, which is devotion and stuff like that, but can also talk about Hades and Persephone. So let me just read this through here so I can give you this information quickly and then move on. So just to reiterate again, March 13th to May 9th, 2023, Mars will go over Xi Jinping's sun, as I said, which deals with the kingdom, health, and the ego. Natal Mars, which is the fourth lord of real estate and land, if this ascendant is correct, because the fourth house for all Leo ascendants is ruled by Scorpio, which belongs to Mars. So it deals with home and domestic affairs, and the ninth lord of laws, politics, foreigners, travels, and beliefs, gurus and publishing. So Xi Jinping, I think there is a very good chance he's going to try and change laws. He's kind of done it already for, of course, Hong Kong, but I think there's going to be more after these protests. I think he's going to want to crack down, or you never know, he might see the light and loosen the laws, but it's probably unlikely, especially looking at his chart. So, and then his Mercury is the lord of the 11th and the second house. So the 11th house is great dreams, desires, large sums of money, groups and organizations of all kinds. Also deals with society. Second house is assets, money, values, education, the voice, speech. So Mars will be going over that. So I mentioned that along with, and Mercury along with communications and media, and Uranus, which is sudden shocks and surprises, technology and innovation, and rebellion and revolution. So I've written here, it's highly likely that Xi will try to enact new laws in regards to speech, social media, and protests, in China, which the transit essentially follows the logic, doesn't it? We know that he's repressive, but in his chart, there is a pathology there. I think he's, again, for entertainment purposes only, but I think he's a psychopath. I just have to put it that way. Looking at his chart, I see psychopathy. Yeah. So now here, where do I see that psychopathy? If we look here, he's got Pluto, Hades, Moon, which is the mind and the emotion, and Ketu, snip, snip together. This can also be a combination that is associated with serial killers. I kid you not. I know that's very strong to say, but that combination can produce that kind of result, particularly as it's in the 12th house, yeah, which can also deal with addictions, secrets of all kinds. It also deals with foreign lands, can also deal with bed pleasures, stuff like that, hidden enemies, yeah. So Xi Jinping could also have some hidden enemies at work, but it shows that the mind is a bit warped, particularly as his Pluto, as is the same with Putanesca, it's also Gandanta in the sign of Cancer. Yeah, Gandanta is when a planet is in the last 2 degrees and first 2 degrees between a water and a fire sign. So water going into fire or fire going into water, that is a Gandanta point. So it happens between Cancer and Leo, between Scorpio and Sagittarius, and Pisces and Aries, yeah? And it means drowning. Putin also has the same placement. I think even Trump has got the same placement as well. So Pluto is what? Hades, god of the underworld, control. Some of the worst of what humanity can do. The positives, of course, are transformation, transcendence, mea culpa, all of this stuff. But what do we know? What usually happens? People go for the low-hanging fruit that's rotting on the floor, and they go to the dark side. So when you put that with Pluto, Moon, and Ketu all together, and this Pluto is in the nakshatra called Aslesha, which can deal with poison. Quite literally, it can deal with poison. It also deals with metaphysics and the occult and magic as well. So there is actually a metaphysical side to Xi Jinping, believe it or not. But it's that dark side. It's that dark side. He really sees himself as a dragon. Honestly, when I just tune in, he really sees himself as something supernatural. Yeah, he sees himself as something supernatural. Not completely far-flung, but he's not what he thinks he is. But he believes himself to be that. And that's part of the problem. So here as well, with this transit over Ceres, which will be, Mars will be activating all of this, I put here, Xi may worry about losing control. As Ceres deals with devotion, yeah, and agriculture and food. So there could be issues with food, agriculture and stuff like that, assets as well in China, yeah, as a result of this. As we know, they've been economically stunted, yeah, because of all the lockdowns as well. I think, Whimsy just springs to mind. Whimsy has been talking about China as well. And when she's been doing her remote views and stuff like that, she's also seen the economic plight and potential crash for China as well. This transit, I would say she's definitely onto something. It could be dicey, yeah, it could be dicey. But also as well, Ceres is the Roman name for Demeter, which is the original Greek goddess of harvest, who had a famous daughter, Persephone, who was taken into the underworld. So I've put here agriculture plus Persephone. He may try to keep the people in the underworld, just like Hades / Pluto. We call Hades Pluto today, but it's the same energy. And his Pluto is what? Gandanta, drowning. Karmic knot, means it's a karmic knot, and it's with the moon and it's with Ketu, who I call snip snip. But Ketu and moon can be very pathological. So you see, when we put it all together, he's more inclined to go the Hades route rather than trying to turn the lead into gold. And it's backed up by his actions, because he's recently got himself installed as supreme leader. The dragon of the Chinese people has cried out. I did my little bit, the ding, 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 yeah, getting rid of the shackles, but they gave me the name, Qi Qing. And then when we looked it up, as you can see here, deals with the Duke Qing of Qi, and his story showing that this is maybe something that could happen to Xi. But I think it's conditional. If the dragon takes flight, if I have another dragon and the dragon shows me itself flying across, because then it's at the moment it's just sniffing the air. Yeah, it didn't come out of the cave, and I found that quite significant that it didn't come out of the cave immediately. And we've seen that the protests have been suppressed, but that dragon is now free, is unshackled. So it also means deep within the Chinese people, they understand, right, we need to be tactical here. We need to be tactical. I think the dragon will wait for its time. If the dragon stays in the cave, Xi will win, and he will be in control until he dies. Yeah, it's as simple as that, because that's essentially what he wants. He wants to rule as supreme leader, yeah, dragon emperor, which he's not. However, if the dragon flies, then Xi Jinping will be humbled, just like the Duke Qing of Qi. That's how I see it. So this is very, very interesting. The Duke Qing of Qi ruled for 16 years, and basically Xi is coming up to his 10-year tenure. Yeah, he's obviously had it extended indefinitely. Does this mean another 6 years of Xi? We will have to see. But there's obviously a strong correlation here with the story. And at the moment, Xi is in Mars-Mercury Dasha. Yeah, it's this timing sequence, which I introduced to you guys as well, in particular when I was talking about Trump. And I said through this year, 2022, I said his fates will not be great. Yeah. But remember too, I said from 2023 onwards, it gets even worse. We see it's going downhill already. Many have predicted this, but the dream came true. But particularly October 2023 for Duke Larange is pretty much disastrous, because this is when K2, snip, snip, starts taking effect. And that's when he's also being taken to court, you remember, in New York for all of his assets and stuff like that. For Xi, he goes into Mars K2 on the 9th of July 2023. Here, yeah, which I've done in red. This could be another big test. But really, I feel it's when he goes into Rahu Saturn, which will be on the 16th of February 2031. Saturn sits in the second house with Neptune, which is known as the Great Dissolver. The second house is also a marker house, which means it can bring endings. Yeah. So we'll have to see, but I'll be very surprised if he's still around by that point. Obviously, that's a ways off just yet, but I'll be very surprised if he's still leader or alive, anyway, for entertainment purposes only. I don't want to predict too much. Yeah, I don't want to predict too much. When we look at his D9, second half of life, his Navamsha, he has got Mars in the first house in the sign of Sagittarius. Wow, that gives a tremendous amount of power to the personality. And this is someone that basically, and I've put here, tremendous self-confidence, but also fanatical. Yeah, so here the ego is really kind of overpumped. But what I found interesting was that in his D9, his sun, the sun is debilitated in sidereal Libra. So this is what I wrote. Deep inside, Xi feels insecure. His insecurity fuels his obsession for power and absolute control. Yeah. So think about it. If a person is secure, they don't need to dominate everyone else. They just don't need to. This is a form of toxic masculinity, which we're all familiar with. But a man who is comfortable in himself, confident in his power, doesn't need to dominate others, control others. He or she or that person who's in that confidence will just lead. They will have natural authority. When it's their time to go, they will understand it's their time to go, and they will move aside. Yeah, they will move aside, like the previous, like Hu Jintao. Once his 10 years came, he moved aside. Xi Jinping doesn't want to do that, and I think it's because inside he's actually deeply insecure. Let's see how that pans out. Again, the guys that are here for my membership, you'll get the scans of that. But for everyone, because not everyone will be necessarily even interested in the chart, but I will do a post for everyone on my community channel for this story, which you see validates and backs up the dream, because I was given real things. There you are. I wasn't expecting to come from the source. It did. Right. So there's that. Let's see what happens there. And again, if you'd like a consultation with me, of course, go to my website, thearchetypalblueprint.com. Use Crimbo20, as I showed you earlier. Voila. And then you get a discount on all my stuff. Only till 7th of December. And after that, yeah. So, the UK. So, I want to tell you something funny. We are really in a pickle here. It's not actually funny, actually. We really are in a pickle in the UK, as you guys know. And one of the things I've been realizing is that I've been tuning in to the collective consciousness of the country quite a lot more than I thought I had. And this dream that I had, of course, with the Dragon of China, and I'm just like, whoa, I mean, China is effectively 1.4 billion people, you know, and it's a huge, you know, nation. I'm like, well, if I can tune into something like that, then of course, UK is much, much smaller. We get about 70 million, call it that, and loose change. And I've realized it's been affecting my appetite. Why? Now, listen, I love my food. Yeah, all my friends know that I love my food and this, that, and the other. But I have to say this. Well, obviously, since lockdown, my whole body weight changed and stuff like that. And there was that. But I still like my food. And it was, you know, I had my rest and energetically things changed. But in particular, since those energy bills have gone up for everyone, it's really been affecting my appetite. I've been having to remind myself, eat. Oh my gosh, I've just seen the time. I've got to stop here. I've actually gone over. And did you see my alarm didn't come up, didn't go off, because it fell on the floor and that must have switched it off. To be continued. But anyway, let me just quickly get this bit out. I'm so sorry for my client. I got too into it. But basically, a lot of people are going hungry in the UK, and 1 in 5 people in the UK now need to go to food banks. And I think I'm tuning into that collective, and it is affecting my appetite, because one thing is, a lot of parents now are now skipping meals to feed their children. So I think I'm just tapping into that. I mean, I'm all good, and I'm going to be traveling next year, which I will explain. But I just wanted to share that. It's very interesting what's going on in the UK post-Brexit. And there's almost this palpable sense of betrayal and despair, and you know, a lot of people have been swindled about a lot of things. I will leave it there. Thanks so much for tuning in. I've gone over. I've literally got to speak to my client right now. I hadn't realized how much the time had gone. I hope you found that interesting. And again, if you're interested in a consultation, go to thearchetypalblueprint.com. All right. See you soon. Bye-bye.